Chapter 1. Hell Jail. The house for all. It was the only house where a government minister and a pickpocket dine together, work together, and discuss matters on equal terms. It was here that I met Mthemba, the convicted minister. Kong'or, the convicted advocate, Kisu Mwangi, the convicted magistrate, Renjoraj, the rapist, Mathenj, the pickpocket, Shikoli, the chicken fucker, and most remarkably Kisinga, the gangster. A large family of devils and angels. I loved this house called jail. The only place where equality was exercised regardless of social class. But now I was leaving it. Going back to the free world I had loved to hate. The world of hate, greed, the struggles for power, assassinations, and social injustice. But most of all, I hated myself for what I was. A factory reject? That was what I was. Made up of third-class material. The leftovers of creation. I suspected God must have created me shortly before lunch. The lunch bells were ringing when he was making me. In a hurry to leave his workshop, and he left me incomplete. Worst of all, he gave me the brain of a chicken and the body of a human. It was probably by mistake. God. No wonder he lives in hiding where I can't reach him for complaints. Prayers. Out of the question. I tried all kinds of phrases and flatteries and even wanted to sacrifice a ram. Wapi. I got the same results. So I succumbed to the nobility of creation. But that was before I met her Caroline. The woman who made me cross the bridge. By then I was a houseboy. I was beginning to do this. Home. I missed the cockroaches, the lice, the bedbugs, and the night chorus of rats in the thatch roof. It was a long time since I had had a jigger. I had got so used to living with vermin that I had come to accept them as part of my family. I could almost pinpoint which rat was the father of which, tell the difference between a pregnant cockroach and a fat one, and even notice a missing rat. That was home, far away from the heaven I was living in. Yes, I was a houseboy in this heaven. I loved it, although I knew it was temporary comfort. I could be kicked out at any time and go back to the god-forsaken suburbs where adults sang Christmas carols in the middle of the year, where folks walked long distances to draw water, and where wives didn't wear knickers because their husbands didn't mind. Quite unlike home where folks shared meals with animals short of chewing grass, in this new home one shared the luxuries of my master. I ate the same royal jelly that I cooked for him, lived in a stone house and not a mud cave, slept in a comfortable bed instead of that rock-hard bed I had known for years, clean bedding instead of rags, electricity, and all. I was determined to stay. I was just beginning to get settled when the unexpected happened that night. It was around midnight when I was woken up by a soft knocking on the door. I was in the middle of a funny dream and at first thought that the knocking was an illusion. A mix-up in my dream. I listened attentively. All I could hear was the gentle hum of the winds brushing against the twigs of the neatly trimmed eucalyptus trees in the compound. So I concluded that God's computers were not channeled to my station. Soft and musical, the wind sounded like a night angel singing a lullaby to the sleeping bosses who lived in those exclusive residences. Ambassadors, company executives, top civil servants, and other representatives of the cream of creation. This reflection always gave me a feeling of guilt. I felt like a thief, breathing the same air as those men of distinction. I dismissed the knocking as imaginary and resettled myself in the bedclothes. But it came again, this time distinct and insistent. I was suddenly alert and partly alarmed. I couldn't figure out who the visitor could be at that time of the night. A night thief? I wondered edition. But the place was well guarded. There was a security guard at the gate, not to forget the constant police patrols that kept undesirable characters out of this honored place. After all, I reasoned, only a stupid thief would come to the servants' quarters. While all the precious things were in the main building, where the boss and his family slept. Who is it? My voice quivered with apprehension. It's me, the soft voice replied. I felt a cold stream flow up in my system when I realized who the caller was. At first, I was frozen in a mixture of disbelief, fear, and excitement. In that moment of frenzy, the only person who jumped into my mind was my boss, Kahutu. The rich brute who could happily cut me into pieces and feed me to the dogs if he got to know what was going on at this hour. Kahutu was a progressive native in the core of New Africans. A top civil servant, he lived among the dignified and owned a large bungalow, big cars, and uncountable property. To him, I was just a part of his discarded property. He was hardly aware of my existence in his home compound except when our paths crossed, which was rare.
Like most people in his social bracket, Kahutu lived the Western way, talked Western, laughed and coughed Western, dinner jackets and all. His children hardly spoke their mother tongue or used their native names. They knew very little about their fellow natives who lived in the unprivileged suburbs because they were born and brought up in an exclusively Western atmosphere. His son, Peter, couldn't tell the difference between a dog and a goat as he hadn't had a chance to visit the suburbs where goats and people shared the same room. The unexpected visitor was Kahutu's only daughter, Caroline. The pearl of the family. She was also Kahutu's major problem. The rich civil servant had always had one fear, that Caroline might associate herself with those outrageous teenagers wearing funny bell-bottoms and bring shame to the family. As a measure to save her from the ignorance of youth, he strictly supervised her. She was at school in a cliquish day high school. This meant that he was in a position to keep an eye on her. To protect her from hungry teenagers, he made sure that she remained within the home compound whenever out of school and never went out without a chaperone. But as the saying goes, a man proposes, and God disposes. When Kahutu was making plans for his daughter, God was making his. It was only natural that Caroline, already an adult, and beautiful and lonely, would try to seek the company of a member of the opposite sex. But the only man within her restricted reach was the only man within the home compound. The houseboy named Chuma. 4. Before this fateful night, I was puzzled about her strange behavior which I hadn't noticed before. Until recently, she used to look down upon me with a mistress-to-servant attitude. But when she realized that something was missing in her system, a natural urge that only a man could handle, she started seeking the company of the only male within her reach. One afternoon, I was weeding the flowers near the hedge when the housemaid next door whistled at me. Like Caroline, the housemaids in this location were sexually starved. They were desperate creatures with no access to young men other than the male servants. That made me an eligible suitor for the maid's kingdom around me. But the regulations stipulated that I should not invite my mother, let alone a maid, into the servants' quarters. Looking across, I saw the maid standing on the other side of the fence, beckoning me frantically. It was the third time that she had made this kind of approach. Twice before I had failed her, mainly because I objected to her idea of sneaking into my quarters late at night. I looked around, just to make sure nobody was watching me. Then I walked to the fence. "You braggart," she spat. "Do you think you are so handsome that I must keep running after you?" "Cool down," I said. "Unless you want to see me kicked out of this place, stop having ideas about jumping over the fence at night." "Coward," she hissed. "No wonder you couldn't make anything better than a servant." She was getting on my nerves. "And what are you over there?" I burst out. "The Minister of Kitchen Affairs." "At least I do a woman's work," she retorted. "Men are not supposed to be housewives." 5. My male ego was provoked. "Look here, Teresa. It's not my fault that my mother brought me into this world to be what I am. I germinated from a poor quality seed, the leftovers of creation. You belong to the same category. Born to serve others. Now let's stop this rubbish about what I should be and what I shouldn't be." She smiled placatingly. "I was only joking. I love jokes, but not being ridiculed. I hate being reminded of what I am because I know it, and there is nothing I can do about it. At least for the time being." "Okay," she conceded. "How about tonight?" "What of it?" "We meet tonight," she commanded rather than requested. If you don't want me to come to your quarters, we could meet right here. I thought for a while. Maybe I was simply docile or unsure of myself. Or probably I had been repulsing her approach because she was making it too easy for me. Obviously I wasn't attracted to her, but she needed me as a tool for her own convenience. I was just about to give her my reply when I happened to look over my shoulder and saw Caroline approaching. When I turned my head again, Teresa had already fled, leaving her demand unanswered. She wasn't taking a chance with the daughter of her boss's neighbor catching us doing the forbidden. I retracted my steps to the flower garden and pretended to be busy. It was a Saturday afternoon and I wasn't needed in the kitchen until later. From the corner of my eye, I watched Caroline strolling in the flower gardens, carrying her elegance like Miss Universe exploring her beauty kingdom. She was slender and tall and built with high-quality material. Looking at her, I wondered if she was really walking or floating. Too nervous to meet her eyes, I looked the other way until I was sure she had bypassed me. This had always been the routine. We had all along been strangers to each other, strangers by social distinctions. I turned my head, expecting to find her gone. My heart jerked when I saw her standing behind me, staring at me with blank cold eyes. I had seen that look before, the look of a prisoner in search of escape. Only this time I was the object of her look. For the first time since we both became aware of each other's existence, our eyes met in a straight line. Are you surprised? Her voice sounded a long way away. Surprised, ch. Oh, no, I slurred. She smiled slightly. Then she said it. How do you like that girl? Which girl? The Aya you were talking to over the fence. Oh, that one. I didn't know what to answer. Is she your girlfriend? She pursued. What? Do you love her? Now. What's she up to? No, I said flatly. Just friends. Shit. Maybe. You are lying. To myself, I said, so what? You are lying, she repeated. Well, I thought, you can tell your father that his servant is having an affair with the maid next door. That might make me decide whether to stay or go. Seeing the hostile look in my eyes, she put on a mischievous smile and nonchalantly walked away. I watched until she disappeared behind the bungalow. That decides it, I told myself. She'll wait for his father to come home and report the matter. The way her father loved her, a single word against me was enough to have me kicked out of the place without notice. But then, what would I lose? A meager salary at the end of the month, a comfortable bed, and delicacies. But then, all the good things I enjoyed here were mere privileges and not rights. I had lived without them and I could still do so. The sooner the better. But when a week passed without a word from my employer, I decided that Caroline had either let the matter drop or she simply had no motive. Meanwhile, I caught her several times watching me from a distance, but she never got so close as she did that afternoon. Teresa didn't call again. She had either given up or got scared after that incident. So, it was a bolt out of the blue when I recognized Caroline's voice calling at my door in the middle of the night. I hesitated before I could struggle out of the bed to open the door for her. There could only be one reason for her calling at that hour, an unimaginable reason. My heart throbbing and my knees buckling, I slid out of bed and went to the door. I unlocked it with all due care lest the clicking of the keys might attract unwanted attention. She was standing there, her majestic frame silhouetted by the blazing moonlight. Her cream-white nightie added to the splendor and gave her a ghostly look. I was seized by a whirl of consternation. Are you surprised? The same question again. Yes, I admitted in a voice that sounded as if it was coming from a deep pit. She didn't make any attempt to be invited into the house, and I was too mystified to welcome her in. Sorry to disturb your sleep, she said after a lengthy moment. Or maybe your girlfriend is in. Which girlfriend? The one I saw you with. I told you she wasn't my girlfriend. My voice carried annoyance. I am sorry if I butted into your affairs, she said. You didn't butt into my anything. The tension was now beginning to relax as the conversation developed. But I was uneasy. My eyes kept roving here and there, just in case Kohutu emerged and caught us. It appears you don't want me in your house, she said with urgency. I am going. Oh, pardon me. I had now enough courage to welcome her in. She looked reluctant to enter, as if she had suddenly changed her mind or she dreaded her idea. It was not until we were engulfed in the darkness of the room that I screwed up my courage and sought her hand. She put up a slight resistance, the way they always do. The rule among women. They want something and they don't want it. They say no when they mean either yes or no. Because they are supposed to be on the defensive side and men on the offensive side. She let me hold her hand while I desperately groped for something to say. She was an elephant and I was a mouse. How would a mouse cut an elephant? Won't you sit down? I stammered. I